It is the end of July, and it is the end of the line for this car, 2001 Jaguar XJ8. I bought this mid-November last year, so 8.5 months now that I've been persevering with this thing, but today's the end. Today is the day that this thing gets out of here, and there's a bit of a story that goes with this car, so let me explain some of this to you. I bought this car from Woodbridge, New Jersey. It was a police impound auction. They had about 70 cars that they were selling. Most of those cars, they were smashed up, busted up, destroyed in some way. One looked like it was pulled out of the river, like it's been submerged for months. Another caught on fire. A handful of cars were cosmetically pretty decent. The thing with this auction, though, is every single car was sight unseen. Nobody was allowed onto the auction lot. You weren't allowed to inspect the cars. You could only go by the 7 or so grainy photos that they had, and you had to make your decision at that point. They had some cars that sold for a lot of money, way more than I would expect them to sell for, given the condition of the auction. I paid $725 for this car, another $35 in fees. It was a buyer fee, it was a check processing fee. This car is destroyed today only because I had to make some choices here. I haven't been able to get the title from the state of New Jersey. I was considering an engine swap. I was considering a lot of different options with this car. Ultimately, though, without a title, I can't do anything with it, and I can thank the coronavirus for that. The real problem with this car, though, isn't the interior. I did that. I pulled some parts out trying to make some money on some parts, and I sold the gear shift knob, the interior wiring harnesses, and so forth. The real issue and the real problem with this thing is under the hood. It's the engine. The engine is seized. I believe it's an interference engine, and it just cranks. It's metal on metal, and when you hit the key, it goes. You hear the grinding and the scraping. The engine is no good. The radiator leaks, the brake pedal goes to the floor. There's plenty of mechanical problems, and that's the risk that you take at some of these auctions. For $725, I had my fingers crossed, based on the Carfax that I read on this car, that it would be a decent running, driving car that I could take a chance on, not spend a lot of money on, and maybe have something fun to drive and enjoy for a little while. That is not the case at all with this. The real travesty with this thing is that it's gorgeous. I love the color, I love the style and the design. I love Jaguars ever since that White Snake video came out in the mid-1980s or so. There's so many cool and special and unique features about this car, and that's why I really took the chance on it. That's why I spent the $760 total, right? I looked at LS swapping it, and it was starting at $3,000. I looked at a whole bunch of different options with this car, but finally, without the title, I mean, there's nothing more than a scrap heap, and that's where this thing is heading today. See, I think I missed an opportunity, and some of you guys commented on that on the previous video about this car, that I missed a chance to do something stupid and wild and crazy and fun with this thing without spending a whole lot of money. And you see, I was watching this episode of Roadkill on TV, and it gives me inspiration where those guys, they took a mid-80s Jaguar that was headed for the scrap heap, just like this car, and they yanked the engine out, threw it away. They put a small black Chevy in it, no electronics, strictly carburetor, a simple 3-speed automatic transmission. They had a tunnel ram and dual quad sticking out of the hood. I mean, they did something fun with it without spending a lot of money, and they drove and enjoyed it and had fun with it, and they took a road trip with it. That is something I think I should have done in hindsight with this car before I ripped out the interior, before ripping out the wiring and selling off some of the pieces like the rear mirror and the gear shift knob, the keys, and so forth. So before this thing actually heads to the scrap heap in the next few minutes, if you can bear with me, let's just take a quick look back at some of the cool memories that I have with this car and some of the cool findings that I've had with this car over the 8.5 months that I've had. Here's what the car looked like at the auction. It was US Gov bid. This pic of the interior is what I put a lot of emphasis and value on. I saw the cup sitting on the center console and what looked like a sandwich wrapper on the passenger side seat. My first thought was the driver was out having lunch somewhere, got arrested, the car got impounded with half a lunch sitting there, and then got auctioned off. This is exactly what I got when it got delivered. But today's my opportunity to go through the interior, shovel out all that crap, and see what we find. The most interesting thing I found in the car, though, wasn't the bottles or the loose change. It was a class ring from 60, 70 years ago and 3 pendants. I was able to track down the previous owner of the car and his address, and I mailed those items back to him, figuring that they were special and sentimental to him. He, in turn, sent a follow-up letter sharing the importance and the significance of those items that I returned. So that was pretty cool. But today, this is where the story ends. I've got $400 in my hand. I got my wheel chock over there. And this Jaguar, well, going to become pie tins or soda cans for somebody else. Hopefully somebody, however, gets to use some parts off of this car to keep their Jaguar on the road. So I hope you enjoyed the story. I certainly learned a lot from this one. And, well, I'll see you on the next video.